Chapter 53, Pod's Catching Up. Back at the Morphil planet, Pod wakes up in a cell, wondering what is about to happen. But as he wonders, Pod has a good look outside of his cell window, well barred up, using Netro, but even then, his arms are chained up at a point where he is stuck to a single spot, no touching the walls or even the floor. But even then, it has been so long since he last saw his race, and not much has changed. They are one of those races which like to practice combat often. They still possess the same fighting style as Pod used to start with before the Legion gave him extra tips. Aside from their abilities, these Morphils sometimes like to relax, swimming through the rivers or the massive chunks of water in the air. They often play board games made up of stones. They also enjoy working together to build stone shelters for new Morphils, and they also focus on getting new Morphils to enter the new world. The more pro-Mechajaw Morphils get their new Morphils to be as vicious as possible, whilst the kinder Morphils try and get them to have an open mind. But this often leads to clashing. Even Pod managed to capture a conversation about the fact that if Mechajaw was to be taken over, then a Morphil has to let Mechajaw know that a Morphil wants to be a leader. So Mechajaw will allow a challenge to fight him. But no wonder not many Morphils ask for this role, because Mechajaw has always beaten all of the Morphils that have wanted to challenge him using the arena. Nowadays the arena has been used for practice. And even Mechajaw doesn't recommend this request because he is planning to be the leader indefinitely. He mainly takes these challenges to show the other Morphils who are boss. The arena is a large circle surrounded by waterfalls with clumps of rock from place to place. Even a lot of spare water for the Morphils to crowd around to watch the arena. The arena is also grey and blue with a Morphil silhouette painted all over it. To add to that, Mechajaw's presence is enough to stop some of the Morphils' fun, any misbehaving or hints of mind evolution. Mechajaw would chuck in a cell and mind warp him via mind-altering technology, which is part of Mechajaw's technological arms, making a Morphil a creature devoid of little emotion. Back in the day, Pod's mind was so blank that he couldn't see that he was causing violence, and not knowing other Morphils were under the same lid as him. But as Pod sees, one Morphil fails to work properly in the eyes of Mechajaw, gets other Morphils to take a broken Morphil to the planet of the Vuronics. With Pod not knowing what happens on that planet if unwanted Morphils are taken there. Pod also sees that the ships used by the Morphils haven't changed, made up of a mixture of metals, strong but not as strong as Netro. Mechajaw can only get very little because of the accessibility and still trying to find ways to use Netro in various ways. These ships were also made by the same race that helped make the Titanran's only ship, and neither race knows they have the same ship maker. These ships, Orca Flyers, can only fit 6 or more Morphils, but there are multiple, allowing any Morphils to swarm a planet compared to running on one massive ship. These ships are like a caravan with a shorter roof width, made up of blue, white and black. And even have a metallic Morphil face at the front to evocate fear towards any public. But then, Mechajaw slowly goes to Pod. Both have not seen each other in a very long time, about 50 or more years. These creatures do have a long life after all. Mechajaw is curious, but Pod is eager to rip him apart. As they catch up, the emotions don't change, even Mechajaw knowing that Pod is a different kind of Morphil, actually, one that was specially created to absorb one element. Mechajaw would like to get rid of Pod. And so, the Morphils do have a massive fighting sport as practice, and later, they will do this again, but with Pod acting as a punching bag, and so Mechajaw gets his Morphils to get everything sorted. Mechajaw also saw his Morphils ravaging through the ship Pod arrived in. And this is where the Morphils came across the Green Ape's GPS technology. Pod left it there because he thought he might lose the technology more likely when fighting the Morphils compared to where he attempted to hide the ship, knowing that the Morphils would be more interested in him. Pod also hid his ship in a rockier area around the edge of the land, in an attempt to hide it. Mechajaw has a look at the GPS, seeing that it is very easy to use, even finding out where the Titanrans are, one of the Morphils' biggest foes. Considering what Xionthor and others at the Deepar Fortress think of the Titanrans, seeing them as threatening no thanks to their connection to Livinga alongside other capabilities. What none of the Deepar Fortress's lot yet don't know is that the Titanrans now have Livinga. They thought that Earth may still have 2 of the elements. When Ikran was last in Nahashtu, he never heard anything about the elements, and from trying to contact and wait for the others to arrive. He only heard certain information like who the Legion and Titanrans were despite the disguises. Mechajaw knows the Titanrans also need to be wiped off the map, and so on top of everything else, Mechajaw sends other Morphils to the Titanrans, providing the location. Even Pod hears this. Remembering who the Titanrans were, slightly scared that another race might be close to suffering on a humongous level. Even Mechajaw doesn't like the Titanrans because that race is not only smart, but they may bring more smart races back into the universe. Yes, the Titanrans may bring back other wildlife too, but Mechajaw has thought of ways to do it himself if he ever gets hold of Livinga. But that is a thought for the distant future because he isn't always sure about what Xionthor will be planning. Mechajaw also thinks that the Titanrans are also trying to play God, taking advantage of a race which also makes Mechajaw itch with annoyance. Mechajaw encourages some Morphils to get going with the invasion towards the Titanrans. Some of the Morphils are keen. Some are reluctant and the rest want to watch the arena, including Clam. As this happens, Mechajaw gets other Morphils to drag Pod to the fighting arena. Now that is it prepared, Pod gets plunged to the center of the area. A flat stone land with some occasional platforms surrounded by waterfalls. A crowd of Morphils within the water. With Mechajaw sitting on his special chair, he introduces Pod to the rest of the Morphils as the Morphils all spread the word about the upcoming fight via the communication spell, making many Morphils excited to see other Morphils try and fight one of a kind. Mechajaw won't be fighting here, similar to Xionthor where he often likes his army to do the work to save himself. After all, Mechajaw is running on his last heat-emitting obsidian, so quick activity can make the obsidian not last as long. Not to mention Mechajaw cannot afford any significant damage towards himself, he is a machine after all. The jaw sharps earlier were at least simple, weren't very damaging towards Mechajaw and he was near areas where he might have got more obsidian but couldn't. But he will fight Pod if the Morphils fail, and also wants to be familiar with what Pod's fighting style is like, wondering how to counter him later. All the Morphils from the crowd are given the option of whether they want to fight Pod or not, acting as the crowd for this sport. And there is plenty that is keen and starts running up to Pod from all angles. As the Morphils try and fight Pod, Pod is countering the Morphils in many different ways, such as remembering Diane's swift dodging moves while quickly moving punches or kicks aside as a point where a Morphil could overthrow their momentum or end up spinning. As well as Nicole's taking down moves such as swinging someone over his shoulder and landing hard on the ground. It is moves like this one which not only make Pod appealing to many Morphils, but they didn't know that there is more to learn about martial arts. The average Morphil martial arts mainly consist of punches and basic blocks, many types, but the Legion will add to this, such as the many ways Nicole, Diane, and others form their punches and kicks, not to mention her taking down methods which Pod had used a couple of times. He even performs a spinning kick which he also learnt from Nicole, who learnt it from Mike, wowing the Morphils. Even Opusnost and Pod gave each other some fighting tips, such as when Pod formed an ice baton which carries over the knowledge of dual blade fighting, with the trident in the other hand. Pod at first was blocking out these tips from the Legion as he thought he was still good enough with his fighting style, not thinking of the Legion helps him move on, trying to have his own life as well as forgetting about Arvin, who was his first proper friend. But as he sees, performing everything else he has learned outside of his Morphil skills has proven to be worthy, showing that he has become more of himself thanks to others. Not everyone forms an identity on their own. Another reason Pod was able to counter the Morphils is that he remembers that these Morphils use their blunt weapons alongside their sonic punches, punches that are charged up with energy and can release a burst of energy when hitting anything. So Pod counters both moves by hitting them away, moving them towards the ground, or redirecting them to hit other Morphils. Finally, the trident is a very handy tool against the Morphils' hammer-like weapons, which are often referred to as spammers, able to use the trident to steer the weapon away. Pod mainly uses the trident for whacking, no need to harm the Morphils too much after Pod saw these Morphils as beings who do live their lives. Perhaps not all of them are always keen on this planet-invading nonsense. Finally, even his Viber powers he does use wisely. Only using fire to make a Morphil back off to give Pod an advantage, but he uses ice and water to enable him to slide from place to place, to push Morphils back, put Morphils into ice blocks for Pod to get free hits, pushing Morphils away via gushing water from his hands, making the floor slippery via ice to misbalance Morphils. He creates airborne water for Pod to swim in as he gains speed boosts, higher ground, or for dodging, creating shape-shifting ice which knocks Morphils back. Using fire for minor burns or to make Morphils step back, as well as creating gushes of water to send Morphils upwards, no Morphils are killed but a lot of them are badly hurt. This does make Pod a little detestable in the eyes of some. But Pod does later regret this as he starts to see through the Morphils. Some seem unhappy with their life. Over time, Pod does go easy on the rest despite taking them down well. All this anti-Morphil behavior drops further. Especially after seeing what they can be like without Mechajaw's influence. What Pod didn't realize, however, is that some of the Viber abilities are coming from his body rather than the trident, making him see that his body is starting to become a source of Viber. There must be something in his genetic code that enables him to absorb an element slowly over time. It does make him wonder how useful the trident is, but he does feel more in control of the element, feeling like he can do more. No Morphil has ever seen an element in action. Making Pod even more inspiring to some, but to others, it can make him a threat to Morphil kind. Even Mechajaw watches all of this in worry, seeing how far Pod has come, making him wonder what he could do against Pod later. He is not keen on Pod, possibly seeing Pod as a threat against him. Who knows yet who is more powerful than the others, especially as the trident's power seems familiar. Mechajaw also remembers Pod being one of his assisting Morphils, mindless and pushed around like the others. The only thing different about Pod at the time was the color. He was blue. Not grey like an average Morphil. As the fight ends, the Morphils either give in or surrender, and after some thought, Pod does show mercy, meaning he won the fight, intriguing Morphils. Compared to Mechajaw, who is far more animalistic and often keen to throw his weight around for the sake of it, while Pod seems to use his punches in a more calculating way. Mechajaw uses the same Morphils to drag Pod off the arena and to his cell. Pod can understand that he has somewhat won this round, and reckons he will be fighting Mechajaw next, which will be exciting. The Morphils not only talk about one ongoing mission to go to the Titanran planet now they have access to GPS technology, but another topic would be who is better, Pod or Mechajaw. A good few Morphils are won over, thinking that Pod, if he is to be the next leader, more martial arts could be shared. He could be someone who is far more approachable, perhaps someone who can provide other knowledge that Mechajaw cannot, especially as Pod has his powers. Some Morphils have been so impressed by Pod's other fighting moves at a point where some of them try and practice the feats Pod performs, something which will help with practice. Those who still think of Mechajaw as the definitive leader believe that none of them knows what Pod's intentions are. And if he possesses a lot of skills and abilities that no other Morphil has, then Pod could be a threat. Not to mention Mechajaw has formed a culture, making the Morphils strong and fierce, as they think Pod could be too timid. The way both their planets were represented and what they all do together. Pod could change that for the worse. Pod could stop the invasion of planets, which is a life that provides all these Morphils purpose and something which a lot of them do enjoy thanks to their sheer power. Not to mention that some of these Morphils still like the idea of making the universe wildlife only, thinking it could be a good path to peace, considering they have witnessed consequences caused by intelligent foes. Some of these Morphils end up fighting each other. Some beating up between them once they divide, but the likes of Clam, who is one of the biggest fans of Pod, do break it up, getting them to focus on either the upcoming Titanran mission or see who could win the next fight, Pod or Mechajaw. Pod is now locked up. And Mechajaw will see Pod later once he organizes the invasion of the Titanran planet. Pod watches as he collects and even forces some Morphils to get going, seeing that some Morphils are reluctant to fight creatures some have never fought before, the Titanrans. Making Pod see that it's not the whole race that is the problem. It is Mechajaw, the wrong driving force for this whole race, making Pod want to fight Mechajaw and no other Morphil, and once he wins, he will lead his own life of peace and perhaps find Xyanthor himself. He has no interest in leading the Morphils, they should have their freedom as he has.